This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and it is a lovely Friday in Pittsburgh.
It is
chilly.
It's a little chilly, but nice.
Yeah, I got the long
I gotta
sleeves
say, a
on
jacket
today,
on, right,
and,
right.
pants.
I
wore pants to
today,
rookie minicamp.
How was rookie minicamp?
Well, rookie minicamp was uneventful.
That's what you want, I guess. That's kind of how
Nobody
it goes.
got hurt.
Right.
Nobody got anything. But I do have the rookie minicamp roster here.
Okay.
And some of the guys that they brought in, we already knew who the rookies and everything were.
Sure.
But some of the tryout
But like
players.
Harmon's down there. I mean, just for people to know, I mean, everyone's down there. Right?
Some of the tryout players will be some guys on here that people may have heard of, such as Keith Ismail, the center out of San Diego State.
Okay.
Remember him from a few years ago in the draft. He's started some games in the league.
Yeah, so he's been around a little bit.
You also had Elam Manning, an offensive tackle from Hawaii. I didn't look up to see where he had played at, but he's a second or third year player in the league.
So these aren't all a bunch of undrafted rookies.
No,
these
not
are
at all.
Yeah, guys that are just looking to stick in the league.
You had Trey Sermon, the running back from Ohio State.
Yeah. I mean, he had
done some stuff in the league.
Some pedigree and mid-round pick.
Yeah, those are pretty much the veteran tryout guys. But there's also some other guys here that, if you look at.
I assume all the undrafted free agents that they signed were there.
Yes. Yeah. The Middlebury offensive lineman, Thomas Perry.
Okay.
Is a guy that got some pre-draft love.
He did. Some of the O-line nerds are kind of excited about him, to be honest with you. Yeah.
So, just another guy that they brought in. He's still just 21 years old. So,
yeah.
And all the other guys that they brought in terms of the undrafteds and things of that nature. But it's always interesting to see exactly who they brought in. Some of these guys will actually get a shot.
They're going to get in preseason games. Some of them. I mean, and see what happens from there. I mean, I assume a couple of the names will impress enough in practice to stick around and get the coach's attention and get you in there in the fourth quarter of the first game, and then maybe you make a play, and then maybe you're in the third quarter of the next game and see what happens, and end up on a practice squad.
Yeah, the tryout quarterback is Seth Morgan from Mount Lebanon.
Yeah, I don't have any Lebo ties to him, obviously, but he is a local dude.
And they did get Debo.
Debo.
Except it's Debo Williams, a linebacker from South Carolina.
Okay. All right. And they seem to be signing draft picks left and right, too, today.
They did a bunch of that. That's typical.
Because they're in the building and they can sign the piece of paper like old people do,
Yeah.
Right.
You got to physically put your name to the paper.
So what are the practices like? I mean, I assume there's an individual period and it's a pretty slow team stuff.
It's a glorified walkthrough.
Okay.
Basically.
I mean, I know there's no hitting or that kind of stuff.
Put it this way. So, and I'm not giving away any secrets here.
Right. That's what like the tone and tempo.
You come out and everybody got excited because they're coming out, with the offensive line and all the all 11 offensive guys are out there and snap the ball to the quarterback. And he just goes through his progressions. He never throws the football.
Right.
But he goes through his progressions. Yeah.
And
I look here, I look there, I look there, I look there.
And
all right.
That's exactly what the coach told me to do, and that's what I do.
And now I toss the ball back to the center. That's what these practices look like.
That's kind of what happens. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I figured as much. I figured there was as scaled down as you could get. I mean, these guys have had no coaching.
No coach.
Right.
Think about the Senior Bowl practices, how kind of disjointed those can look at times.
Oh, big time, right.
That's why you do these practices now so that when you bring the veterans in, those practices aren't disjointed. Like, you don't want to waste those ones.
Right. It's a great way of looking at it because this is 1+1. I mean, this is kindergarten. This is tying your shoes. This is put your hand up in class to go to the bathroom. Assume
that you have never done a football practice before, and this is what we're going to do, and start from scratch.
This is step one of don't get in Cam Hayward's way when he's here. You know what I mean? Like, at least know where to be and how to get to the cafeteria and where your locker is, and I'm taking my son to freshman orientation in July. You just did this with your daughter a year ago. Just show me where the library is. Not that he's ever going to go, but where the cafeteria is. Right, where
the cafeteria is much more important thing than that.
Much more, or the distillery on campus probably. But anyway,
or maybe the medical office.
Right. Know where your dorm
falls down
room
and
is.
bangs his head off of something.
Right. But I mean, that's what today is, and some of them won't even be able to do that, or won't even get the opportunity to come back and show that they can go to first grade from kindergarten.
Yeah.
I mean, this is preschool.
And really, the things you're looking for. So somebody might ask, well, how does an undrafted guy, a guy who's here on a tryout, stand out in that kind of situation?
I was thinking that too. It's pretty hard.
It's hard, but they do have classroom stuff that they go through. And if you can take it from the classroom to the field without having to be told again,
and again,
right. Now, okay, this guy might be somebody we can work with.
And like any prospect, they're going back to some of those guys you mentioned to start the show are in their third year or whatever. Well, they still have their draft report that they wrote. Right. Somebody wrote them up in their preseason games or whatever tape they've put out there, depending how much there is available. So a few traits.
It's basically getting an opportunity to go car shopping, and you go out and you test drive.
Yeah.
I'm going to test drive. Well, they have 25 guys. We're going to test drive these 25 guys and see if we like any of those models.
Yeah, and you don't learn a ton from a test drive. You test drive a car, you buy it. A month
later. You might
go
do some more research on it later and go, right. Yeah, I don't want that car.
I don't love it as much. Or you own it for a month and you're like, this isn't what I thought I was buying, Yeah. But you do know some of these guys either have strength or speed, or they have some trait that they're there for, Or maybe he's a great special teamer, And
in some instances, it might have just been, hey, we needed 5 offensive linemen to fill out the line. We need
a second quarterback. Lebo quarterback probably
long
is
snapper.
There's
a 7-year veteran long snapper that they brought in, Tabor Pepper.
Which, if you get that call, if you're him, you have 0 to 1% chance.
Right.
But you still say yes.
Yeah.
An
opportunity.
You don't say no.
Because what happens down the line if, for example, Christian Kuntz gets hurt?
Well, that's the thing.
Now at least
I know him.
Yeah, at least it's a guy that you've had in your building.
Right. And Danny might be like, oh, no. Or, he's not bad. If emergency happens.
He's capable.
Yeah, he's fine for the first call if we're going to lose Kuntz for 2 weeks or something. Yeah, and that's exactly how it works. You're on speed dial then. At least you're on the board. You did speed dating, and it wasn't awful, but it was super short.
Explain how that works to people, Matt, in terms of the pro personnel part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like the off season, you still have a list on the walls, basically.
I mean, back in the day, it was magnets. Of course, it's computerized, too, and it was a database.
I would like to still have it on the walls, though, just because I can see it immediately.
We did.
I don't have to go look for it.
Behind our pro personnel director's desk was our emergency board, basically. And it's really still a depth chart of all the running backs available. It's more prominent like during the season, though. Like you'll see, they'll even show like on camera sometimes, wow, they lost 2 running backs in this game. And you see the pro personnel director, he's on the phone. He's got this thing on his phone.
I got to have somebody here tomorrow.
I need someone tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. What running backs are available? Like that board gets updated pretty consistently. And especially in the preseason, it's a mess. I mean, it's you got all these preseason games and you're actually getting new tape on these players.
That guy gets signed. That guy got cut.
That too. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of names that come off. But it's also that guy we had real low. He looked pretty good in week 1 against the Panthers in the preseason. We had scouts there. Maybe we should bump him up a little bit. I mean, if the time comes, he gets a call. But the other thing is, too, like, there's only so many hours in a day, too. I mean, these guys get really spread thin. Like, just to tell a story, one of my down-the-line jobs, and the Browns didn't value it much, and not every team did, but when the CFL season ended, the Canadian Football League, the GM said, Matt, give me your 10 best CFL players. I mean, he told me this before their season started. Yeah. Just when any of your free time, I'm not sending you to Canada. You're not going to watch the Saskatchewan Rough Riders or whatever.
Hamilton or
he's like, just give us a list. I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire. And frankly, no one ever saw the list because people got fired and the list is just looming around. But it so happens, number 1 on my list was Cameron Wake. who turned into he's probably number one on everyone's list, but he was a Penn State player that ended up being a Pro Bowler multiple times for the Dolphins. You know, like you can still get dudes out of there, but it was way down my list of things to do on a Tuesday afternoon. And frankly, when everyone got fired, I don't know whatever happened to that list, but I don't think it ever got saw.
Yeah, probably went in the can with everything else.
Right.
Yeah.
And just clean out Williamson's desk and get out of here, right.
Somebody's box as they were walking out.
I might have it in my attic.
That's just the way things go.
Mm-hmm.
So, the Steelers got their first opportunity to see those guys. We also heard from Derek Harmon, the Steelers' first-round draft pick, for the first time.
That's cool, yeah.
Talked about how he's, business first here. His locker next to Keanu Benton in the locker room.
Makes sense.
Get the two young guys in there and let them get acclimated.
Should have brought this up earlier, but it's almost like freshman orientation, like with my son, he's meeting his roommate for the first time. You know, like I know the world's smaller now, but all your draft picks, all your undrafted free agents are all together. They're all going through and meeting the city, the team for the first time. They're becoming friends. There's a little bit of bonding involved there too. You know,
they all played against each other in the Big Ten, so they should already know each other.
A lot of them more teammates and Hawkeyes everywhere and all that. But still, it's getting this class that has a lot in front of them together too.
Yeah. So it's all part of the process of today. We also today heard it was kind of an impromptu press conference by Steelers general manager Omar Khan.
Cool. Yeah.
And we will talk more about what Omar had to say when we come back. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, as I mentioned before the break there, Omar Khan decided that he was going to come out and give a little impromptu press conference.
Yeah. Coming
out of the trade of George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys for third and fifth round picks. And the Steelers also gave away a sixth round pick. Mm-hmm. He said the deal came together pretty quickly.
Really?
The Cowboys called them earlier this week.
Post-draft. Yeah.
Like all this stuff that you've heard out there, not true.
Okay.
He said it was this week. They made an offer. He said it was an offer that was serious enough that they decided to talk about it. We got to consider this.
Go to the table and chat about it, huh?
Said he also spoke to David Mulgada, who is Pickens' agent.
Okay.
And said, "Hey, what's the situation with George? Where are we at here?" And they all came to an agreement that, hey, this is probably best thing to cut ties here and accept that deal. And
not that they need George's permission or
no, they didn't need it. But
right.
He said he has a very good relationship with the agent, and and
people don't think about that enough. But teams and agents all have different relationships.
Yeah,
and sometimes it can really be fruitful to really mine those relationships. You know.
He said, as he said. It just was a deal that made sense for both sides.
Mm-hmm. I think it made a lot of sense.
We needed
Dallas,
a fresh start.
Right.
We needed a fresh start. George needs a fresh start.
Dallas needs a receiver.
Yeah.
Right. And good. I mean, it seemed like I know that they're getting some criticism now. They're right back to where they were in with the wide receiver room as they were last year. I think it makes all the sense in the world. I mean, the timing of it's fine. I mean, you're getting a quality pick. Now you need to do another step to this,
right?
And I haven't listened to the press conference, and I wasn't there.
We'll hear it later in the show.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But rarely do you see a deal like this right after the draft. A lot of times it happens during. But we've talked about this a bunch. There wasn't a lot of wide receivers that would have made a huge difference to me, especially for this year.
I've had people throw, they instead of taking Jack Sawyer, they could have taken a wide receiver. I'm like, they could have.
They could have, right?
But
maybe they would have if Pickens wasn't.
That guy's not replacing George Pickens.
Right. And there's an argument for that, but we're talking about fourth-round pick swap. I mean, we're not talking about, well, they would have taken Ibuka.
Well, they took those two special teams guys in the seventh round. Again, a seventh-round receiver is not replacing George Pickens.
I hope he doesn't go past Roman Wilson in Austin. And,
right.
I hope he does, but, chances of it are slim, right?
Yeah. A veteran makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. It just does.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't throw another rookie into that room that already is reasonably young in that regard. And as Khan said, hey, that we know. He said, people are saying that the people that say that we're back in the same situation that we were last year.
Oh, he addressed that?
Yeah. He said, that's not the case.
Right.
We know way more about the guys who were on the – remember, last year, going into the season, Calvin Austin was coming off his first NFL season.
There wasn't a lot to go off of there.
He had 16 catches.
Mm-hmm. You got to feel a ton better about him now.
You feel way better about him now. He said – we got to see – now, we didn't get to see Roman Wilson during the season last year, but we did get to see him practice for the last month of the year.
And he was in meeting rooms all day.
He was in the meeting rooms. And we've
also
a
ton more about him than a year ago.
Gotten to see him the last couple of weeks. They have some OTAs going on now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're not real in-depth, but the veteran players are coming into the building and working out and doing it. So they have another year of experience now with Wilson as well, whereas last year at this time, he's going through rookie minicamp.
Right. He's just like Sawyer and Black and Harmon and all those dudes. You love their college tape. You love the 15 minutes you sat down with them at the combine.
Right.
Which is nothing
the
compared
phone
to
call you had after drafting him. Hey, thanks. Okay, we're good.
So this was kind of dawned on me, but I think it also goes without saying. But like comparing Roman Wilson to anyone you just drafted, think about if you had the opportunity to take Harmon or whoever you drafted and sit him in your defensive line meeting room for even one meeting, next to Cam Hayward before you drafted him and you learned that much about him and even trotted him out on the practice field once, how much you'd gain from that. That's better than a 15-minute combine meeting, just that in itself.
Oh, without a doubt.
And you did that for a whole year.
What questions is he asking?
Right,
how does he,
right.
Is he looking at me like all starry-eyed, I have no idea what you're talking about?
Right. When I'm not going to mention the kid's name because he's a good young. He's probably a man. He's probably his kids now. But when we were recruiting a quarterback from around here 1 year at Pitt, we had a real pro-style offense, and he was around a lot. And he sat in the quarterback meeting rooms. He was committed, and realized, I don't know what the heck you guys are talking about. This is way over my head. I'm not going to be able to learn this. I'm not coming here. And it worked out for the better for us, to be honest. We ended up with Joe Flacco, who's an NFL player. But knowing that was like, ooh, I'm not sure he's getting it. And he was like, I'm not getting this at all.
You guys are
right.
So it reminds me, what you just said reminds me, when I transferred to Pitt Johnstown, I'm trying to think of what class
stalwart academic organization.
Absolutely. The Harvard of the Appalachian,
right.
Central Pennsylvania. I transferred. I was a biology major.
Okay.
And I transferred in, and I sat down with the advisor, and he signed me up for this class. And I go in for the first class. I transferred in January. I go in, I sit down for the class, and the professor immediately says, all right, let's pick up where we left off last semester on page 287. I'm like, what?
I didn't do any of those chapters.
I didn't have Calculus 1. Now I'm in Calculus 2.
Yeah. And we're just going to keep it just to be continued.
I'm like, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
And so I dropped that class immediately. I'm like, no.
And I realized you are not a biology major anymore.
I am not.
Right, and never were. Didn't last much longer in that field and found your righteous path. Right.
I was not a good biology major.
Oh, that sounds like a rough one too. Yeah. But no, again, back to Omar. You know a ton more about Austin. You know a ton more about Wilson. Good or bad? With him. Austin, I think, is all good because it's on the field. We've seen it. Our listeners can say I know more about Austin. You know a lot about DK Metcalf.
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
And Skoranek.
Let me ask you this. Who's the better player right now? DK Metcalf or George Pickens?
Metcalf.
I think so too, but there are people on our message board on YouTube arguing the opposite. Like,
I don't think so.
They have the same stats. No, they don't.
I don't know even their stats.
And I don't care about the stats.
I think George is a really good player.
And I'm not trashing George Pickens, but DK
like
Metcalf,
one's awesome. Right.
DK Metcalf has been to Pro Bowls.
Yes.
DK Metcalf has done this year in and year out and hasn't been the off-field distraction.
It was fantasy related, but yesterday I was listening to one of Warren Sharp's real nerdy podcasts about just this trade. It was like 15, 20 minutes. And they were talking about the percentage of Arthur Smith routes with the Titans, namely A.J. Brown, but also Corey Davis, that were in-breaking routes, slants, digs, posts. George doesn't do much of that. And you don't think of Metcalf in that same manner. You think of him as a straight-line speedster, like a drag racer, but that's not what he is anymore. He's a killer on slants.
Because you can't press him.
Because you can't press him. And he's much better at in-breaking routes than you would have thought coming out of Mississippi, where A.J. Brown was at, too. Yeah. Particularly for this offense, the answer is Metcalf to me, because they both can get deep down the sideline.
Yeah.
George might be more talented.
I would say that's arguably the case.
Metcalf's a weird one to say talent, though, because he's really, really big and he's really fast.
Physically gifted, yeah.
Right. I mean, he has some traits that are rare.
It's him and Calvin Austin or Calvin Johnson when you're talking about guys that size that ran that fast.
Right. I mean,
that's it. That's like those two guys.
Right. 100%. I mean, just size, speed. He's as good as you're ever going to see. So that's a pretty big portion of the talent pie right there.
Yeah.
But I think Metcalf's a better player.
But Pickens,
he's definitely more consistent.
He's more consistent. Pickens is the better contested catch guy.
Oh, yeah. That's really not Metcalf's game.
But that's not Metcalf's game. Right. Pickens might be the best contested catch guy in the league.
Right. He's right.
Now that DeAndre Hopkins is kind of tailed off. Mm-hmm. But it's a different style. I think they're both top 20 to even top 15 wide receivers. I'd have to start putting
a lot in the league
names on a list. But I think Metcalf is better, and I think he is better, to your point, a better fit for what they want to do.
And let's just say game-to-game consistency was not Pickens' strong suit, too. Again, he might be one of the top 5 receivers in the league when his career's all over.
Sure.
I mean, I think his ceiling's as high as anyone out there. I mean, but you can't have 0 catch games or, some of that kind of stuff.
The game against the Bengals last year.
Yeah. And this is
3 critical drops that, and this isn't kicking him on his way out the door. I've said this all along. He had the worst game of his career in that game.
Yeah.
Period.
Right.
If he catches any one of those passes, they win that football game.
Yeah. And it was early in the year. It was a lot of the Fields time. There's a lot of jogging through routes. And yes, there's some highlight blocks in his career, but usually it's like on the backside. No one's running behind him, But I'm a Pickens fan.
I think he's a fabulous
not kicking him on the way out
football
the door.
player. Right. And I think he's going to do very good things in Dallas.
Yeah.
And people are going to kill Omar Khan over it. Oh, I can't believe he gave that guy up. Until the first game that he has where he gets like 2 targets.
Yeah.
And then you're going to see the George Pickens that we saw here in Pittsburgh.
Unless he grows up.
Unless he grows up. And maybe he will. And I hope for his sake he does.
How many times we said you're allowed to get better? Yeah. You're allowed to get better. You're allowed to mature. You're allowed to do
maybe this
is
a wake-up call that he needed.
I'm hoping it is for him. He could be tremendous. I mean, that could be one of the best pairings in the league.
Sure.
There's no question. I see why Dallas did it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it just wasn't. I think part of the issue was here. There was nobody else that was on his level, and he knew that.
He knew that, but anyone could see that.
What are they going to do? They going to bench me?
Right. 100%.
Can't bench me.
Right.
I'm George Pickens. They don't have anybody else that's even close to me.
Van Jefferson's not close.
Right, he's
Allen
not pushing me at all.
Close. I mean, any of those dudes. A lot of the guys that he saw a lot of snaps on the field with the ones, they weren't close to him. And anyone could see that. Everyone in the stadium saw that.
Yeah.
Every defense saw it.
So I think some of the behavior might have been with that. Because of that. Like, I can get away with this.
I got a long leash. I'm the best guy in the position.
I can show up late for this because what are they going to do? Bench me?
Mm-hmm. No chance. I'm better than all these dudes. I run drills with them all day long.
I can tell. They fined him multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's well documented too, right?
The league fined him multiple times. Like,
kind of had to go.
Yeah, it's just and again, when Khan is talking to his agent, the agent has the player's best interest in mind as well. And if I'm the agent, I'm going, well, yeah, Dallas would be a better situation in terms of you got your true number one. Not that this would have been a bad situation for him with Metcalf there. But I do think a change of scenery
Oh, I could see the
was
allure
needed
for him and the agent to go Dallas too. I mean, Dak's a been the quarterback for a long time. He's got a lot of pelts on the wall there, and CeeDee Lamb's clearly the one. Now, George is going to have to understand that or flourish with Lamb getting more targets than him, which could happen. It could.
But in reality, the Steelers actually did him a favor.
In a way.
This isn't them sending Deontay Johnson to Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's bad destinations and good destinations, and this was a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a contending team with a quarterback and a lot of playing time opportunity for him, too.
That being said, I do think that the Steelers' options were probably limited. Nobody, even pre-draft, even during the draft, nobody else was. There weren't 31 teams calling the Steelers about the availability of George Pickens. There just weren't.
There might have been a couple kicks of the tires, but probably one team was truly buying.
Yeah,
maybe two. I don't
know. It wasn't Dallas. Dallas wasn't interested in George Pickens during the draft.
Oh, during the draft, you're talking about. Okay,
that all came to fruition here in the last few days.
Okay.
So
they did seem set on Ted McMillan.
Yeah, I think they thought they were going to get him, and then when they didn't, they're like, okay.
And I guess there was a lot of talks between them and Amari Cooper too, post-draft or around the draft, Yeah. So maybe they said, oh, this is a better option.
Yeah.
Not the McMillan. They didn't have a chance at McMillan.
And we'll see if it turns out to be the case or not. I don't know. But, so I think the Steelers looked at this and said, hey, we can get this pick now for this guy in what I think is going to be a really loaded draft next year.
This draft wasn't.
This draft was not.
I mean, we did 8 million mock drafts, and I've said over and over, if you were picking 4, 5, 6, it wasn't a great spot to be in. There weren't tackles. There weren't premium positions that are hard to find.
Yeah.
It was the weakest draft I can remember.
Think about it as when we went through our early mock drafts right after the draft, some of the stuff that was out there. How many offensive tackles were in that first round? How many quarterbacks were in that first round? Like premium pass rushers. It was loaded with those guys.
Yeah, and to me, we often talk about, we don't know if next year's quarterback class is better or worse, and everyone can transfer and blah, blah, blah. But I'll roll the dice that next year's draft is better than this year's draft, head to toe. I mean, this was just a weak draft, and I thought that all along. Mason Graham's going 4, it's like, or 5, Will Campbell's going 4. I mean, those aren't knock your socks off top prospects.
Yeah.
I
mean, I liked the quarterbacks in this draft. I didn't love the quarterback. There's a reason why only 2 went in the first round.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the 2 that everybody thought it was going to be.
One of them wasn't. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyways, it's we'll see how this all works out. And
I don't think they're done at receiver.
I don't think they are either.
What he said about that, or if he addressed it, but I mean, don't totally judge it until they go to play football. Yeah, again, it's beginning of May.
Nor do I think they're going to wait until the trade deadline, to fill this position.
That's a long way away.
Because somebody brought that up. Well, they're just going to do what they did last year and wait until the trade deadline. No, I don't think they will. They tried several different times. Yeah, a lot.
It was a pretty bad kept secret, right?
Right. It was the worst kept secret in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They tried to get Brandon Ayuk. They had a deal in place for Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
Before the trade deadline, and then he went out and got hurt.
And they obviously had other trade talks with Reciever.
Yeah, they didn't just start them with, we're only going to talk to these 2 teams about this. Guys, I think in terms of that stuff, again, with the draft capital that they had last year going into this year, you only had the 7 picks. And so, you probably weren't as likely to trade. Hey, this team wants a 4 for that guy. Well, we can't trade a 4.
You're a little more limited.
Yeah.
You got a lot of cards in your hand right now, though.
You could trade a 4 now, and it wouldn't.
You wouldn't even budge. It wouldn't move the needle hardly.
Yeah.
Right.
You could trade a 5 or a 6. It doesn't move the needle.
Yeah, and I do think teams will covet picks for this upcoming draft.
And that's the other part of it is that if this draft is in fact deeper
than the one we just saw,
those picks are going to be more valuable. You can. Oh,
you don't have to wait till the deadline.
You're going to give me a 5, okay? In next year's draft, absolutely.
Right. I might get a starter out of that. Right?
Yeah.
So no,
Or is Omar Khan like, hey, we'll give you a 4 if you give us your 6, and
we'll swap a little.
Give you a 7.
At the end,
yeah,
right. A little trick. But no, I think there's more to this trade than just what makes you better right this second for the football team. I mean, there's locker room stuff, there's contract stuff coming up, there's the ability to get a Pickens replacement / I mean, it's not going to be a one-for-one replacement. You're not going to find someone as talented as him, I don't think, but you might find someone more reliable, and you have Metcalf in place. So let's see how it plays out before we judge the trade, because I think this is kind of a two-parter.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, as Khan said, we're chasing a championship, and every decision we make is based on trying to win a championship, not only in the future, but this year. We're focused on trying to win a championship this year. I know there's a lot of questions about different things, but there's a lot of time between now and the start of the season.
Yeah.
And rest assured, we're trying to win a championship this year.
I'm glad he said there's a lot of time between now and the rest of the season. There's a lot more moves that are going to happen with this roster overall.
Yeah.
You know? And Jerry Dulac put it out today. I just happened to retweet it. I mean, think about all the snaps and starters they've lost off last year's roster, and I think a lot of them are for the better. You know, so we'll see.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of change already.
Yep. Change isn't always in the coaching staff.
Right.
Which is what a lot of people, you got to change the coaching staff. Well, sometimes you got to change the players.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Jimmies and
They've
Joes,
done a lot of that.
not the X's and O's necessarily.
Yeah. No, they've done a lot of it.
Yeah. Let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And Matt, we closed out the last segment. I said it's about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. And I know the immediate response by some was, well, Mike Tomlin helps pick the Jimmies and Joes.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah, he does, right.
Sometimes you just get a bad mix.
Oh, yeah.
Of
Sometimes
guys.
you got to shake it up a little bit, right.
And you got to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah.
You change your Jimmies and Joes to maybe get better at also get better at the X's and O's. And sometimes those Jimmies and Joes, let's remember, you have a brand new offensive coordinator coming in last
I think that's
year,
a big part of it, too. You know,
who is different from the guy that was here before that. Najee Harris doesn't fit this running scheme.
Mm-hmm.
You talking
Well,
about
put somebody
DK
down.
Metcalf versus George Pickens.
and in breakers and stuff like
Yeah.
that, right. Yeah, right.
The quarterback situation.
It also kind of bothers me, and we've talked about this before too, like people will look at the draft class or the draft pick of Pickens. Oh, that was a miss.
No, it wasn't.
You got a lot from him. You know, you flipped him for something in the end too. I mean, just because you don't extend these guys doesn't mean it was a terrible pick or he was useless for you. Or the Najee Harris pick. We talked to it to no end.
Oh, I've seen Najee Harris was a bust. Are you kidding me?
Right. I mean,
you got 4 1,000-yard seasons out of that guy.
Yeah. I mean, guys that don't help you at all are bust.
That's a
You
bust.
know? Yeah,
Alonzo
right.
Jackson's a bust.
Right. The Steelers have their share just like every other team.
Yeah.
There's guys that don't make it in the league. Those are busts. Now, that doesn't mean it's the best pick you possibly could have made.
Yeah.
We don't have that crystal ball on draft day where you can't predict the future. But the Pickens pick is not an issue to me. You know?
No.
Right.
If you would have had to cut him
That's different.
and got nothing back in return,
Right.
then we're talking about, okay, that was troublesome.
Yeah. Oh, he helped you win games and was important. And he yielded you a nice pick, right.
Yeah. So I don't look at that at all. And again, sometimes you just in the NFL, it's become such a year-to-year league that what worked last year or this group moving into this group. I mean, there's 40% turnover on your roster every year,
All the time.
let alone you're changing over now, quarterback, running back,
Oh, yeah.
wide receiver. Like,
I mean, they're
making major changes.
in a way, and this doesn't sound bad, but they're searching on offense. I mean, you wouldn't go year to year with a different quarterback room, as much. They're searching and they're rolling the dice until it comes up with the right combination of offensive players. Doesn't mean it's going to be wonderful this year, but they kind of knew what didn't work last year, so we'll try something else. I mean, that's what every team does.
I will say this regarding that. At least now you've had 2 consecutive drafts of picking players that fit what you want to be offensively.
100%. That's why continuity is so important, too. I mean, the style of offensive linemen, they're going to be more athletic. They're not going to be mashers. You mentioned the style of running back. No question. Your number one receiver is more of an in-breaker type than the other guy that you inherited.
Yeah. Arthur Smith was here when they drafted Roman Wilson. you think he fits Arthur Smith's offense? Well, they wouldn't have taken him in the third round if he didn't.
Yeah, and I think we were talking during the draft a little bit about Roman Wilson with Mike Pursuta, and he's not one to throw out
accolades or laudits
for Wolverines.
For Wolverines, yeah.
But I don't want people to forget what he is, too. I mean, he's primarily a slot, but he made a lot of money going over the middle of the field, in breakers, third down machine, on a national championship team.
Yeah.
Will that translate to beating the Ravens? Well, that's a big jump for anybody, but it's still out there, guys.
It can't hurt.
Right. But he was drafted with Arthur Smith's style in mind, too.
Right. I mean,
we just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten that. Again, people saying he's a bust already. You're out of your mind. You don't know what you're talking about.
And Russell Wilson kind of worked out, kind of didn't. But we knew when the Steelers signed him, and really for much of his career, he's got a pitching wedge and a putter, and he's got a driver, and that's great for Pickens. Like the Pickens-Wilson combination's quite good.
That worked.
That worked. I mean, that adds up a ton. If he's going to give him a loan, I'm going to throw the go ball and the moon ball. Well, now you're going to have a different quarterback. It doesn't make Pickens worth less, but their vision a year ago was, well, Wilson and Pickens should work really well together. And for the most part, they did.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
They just didn't wait till the midnight hour to sweep it away. So there it is.
Who's your favorite band?
Anyways, that's going to do it for hour number 1 of the drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with hour number 2 right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we're kicking off hour number 2 here of the drive. Talking a little fantasy football.
All right.
We're not going to talk kickers.
Good.
I don't want Matt to feel lost.
Oh, who's he play for again?
We are going to talk defenses, special teams units today. And here's the thing about these kicker and defense. Just a little tip for all the listeners out there who maybe you're new to fantasy football. Don't be the first person in round 10.
Oh, yeah.
To go, I'm getting the best defense or kicker, and it never works out.
Right.
Ever.
I mean, we've had a lot of Justin Tucker conversation here. There was a stretch that was not terrible. It was never my approach because the opportunity cost is you're turning down a backup running back that has one injury away from being a starter at a position you can't
find. Or a wide
find.
Receiver who's just waiting for that opportunity. Or a backup quarterback that's actually going to play games for you. And
maybe even a
it.
starting tight end. Yeah, right.
Oh, but he's the best. Okay, the best kicker in the league averages 1 point per game more than the second best kicker, or the third best, or the fourth best. And it doesn't from year to year.
Remember that this is a head-to-head game.
Right.
Does it really give you that much of an advantage over your opponent? Probably not, because it's also very unpredictable in nature.
Usually,
too. Right.
I would just as soon have kickers not be a part of fantasy football.
Oh, I think they shouldn't be.
Because there's just so much luck involved.
And they also account for a fair amount of points, too.
Yeah.
I've
won games because I've had 25-point games out of a kicker, and it's like...
And we've all won a game that way and lost a game that way. And it's like, but I picked the right quarterbacks and running backs and guys that did all the heavy lifting.
I had a way better week than you, and your kicker beat me.
Defenses, to me, are a different animal.
Defense is different.
Now, obviously, a ton of defense in the streaming world is very applicable here, too. Who you're playing. If you're playing Josh Allen and Lamar, I mean, your defense is probably not going to do as well. But I think there's real football knowledge to picking, especially preseason, who are some defenses that could be pretty darn good this year?
Yeah.
Who can rush the passer? Who can make plays?
Not just the defenses, but the special teams unit.
Yeah,
because you get those kick returns, things of that nature.
Kick returns might be bigger this year.
Yeah. So looking here at Pro Football Focus's defensive rankings, which we've used their rankings all week long. Here's the funny thing about this. So they have... As we've done all week, I've gone through the rankings, like where the team is or where the player is ranked, and then where they're at. So their defense,
overall.
Their defenses start 193, 194, 190, all the way down through to, well, some of them are worth a little bit more, but they go through 204 with defenses. So it's down through defense 12.
To pull back the curtain,
which basically means in a 12-team league, you're waiting until your last round to draft these.
That's what I was going to say. If it's a 15-man roster, I would say 90% of the drafts I've done the last 10 years, The 15th round's a kicker. The 14th round's a defense.
Yeah.
In round 13, I'm taking my last flyer on a real player. Almost every draft I do.
Yeah.
So you are at the mercy of what's left.
Yeah. Here's the difference, though. So at 193, their first defense number 1 is Denver.
I say Denver would be my one.
But the ADP on Denver's defense is 102.8.
Okay.
100 picks.
100 picks different.
Earlier.
Yeah. So don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Same thing with defense number 2. It's the Eagles at 93.8. So they're getting drafted even higher.
Mm-hmm.
On here, their rankings 100 spots less.
You're overpaying.
You're way overpaying for that defense.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting here thinking Denver would be my number 1. They had the most sacks in the league by a wide margin. They had the defensive MVP. They have a first-round draft pick on defense. I mean, they're well coached on that side of the ball. Peyton is friendly to his defense. He runs the football.
The only problem with that,
but I'm not taking them in the 10th round or the 9th round.
They got to play Kansas City twice.
Mm-hmm.
They got to play the Chargers twice, which,
okay.
And they also have to play an improved Raiders team twice.
Yeah.
That's
not the worst gauntlet ever.
It's not. So for me, like Buffalo's defense.
That's appealing because we were doing like strength of schedule stuff.
Strength of schedule stuff? Like they're playing garbage in their division.
I'm glad you brought that up because if you rewind a couple days when we dug into Warren Sharp's strength of schedule stuff, I definitely factor that in when I'm doing fantasy defense stuff.
Like, there's going to be some. Now, maybe not every week because they do play that first place schedule and they got to play the Ravens, they got to play the Chiefs. But there's a lot of weeks you're going to be really happy that you have that defense
New
in
England
there.
And the Jets and weather and all that stuff too.
All that stuff.
And now that's kind of looking ahead. The Bills are a perfect example. Boy, that's a good defense. They drafted heavy on defense. Their strength of schedule is wonderful. Buffalo weather late in the year is really conducive to low points.
Yeah.
But some of that stuff is months away from the day you make your draft.
But you always have to think.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely should split ties.
Yeah.
And the other thing I recommend, too, is, especially with defenses, look at the first 4 games. I mean, if you get 4 cupcakes right off the bat, then you cut them and get somebody else. You know what I mean? Look at the matchups.
The number 3 defense on here.
Phillies 2.
Philly was 2. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
They should be high. At one point, I'm going to go on my really long rant about, to me, one of the 2 – I have 2 real goals for what the Steelers need to do on offense and defense. And the defensive one is basically either lead the league in sacks or be right next to there because you should.
Yeah.
And
you have the
pass rushers, but you are middle of the road in sacks. And there's a lot of reasons why. And that's why it's a long conversation. And some of it's secondary, some of it's coverage scheme, some of it's blitz percentage, time to throw. I mean, over and all and all and all. You have the most sacks in the last 20 years. You have great pass rushers.
You led the league in sacks 5 consecutive seasons.
Right.
Nobody else have done 3 in a row.
And I can argue, and people will laugh, no, they're not. This group of pass rushers might be better than that one. It's right there.
Yeah,
and
it's not worse.
It's not worse. Herbig coming off the bench and Harton, and it's deep too. And to me, sacks is my number 1 thing for defenses.
Yeah,
and it seems small, but in the world of defensive special teams, the Steelers are elite, and we don't bring this up enough at batting down passes at the line of scrimmage. Well, tips and overthrows are interceptions.
Turn into picks and interceptions.
Yeah, exactly.
And
sometimes pick sixes for your fantasy team.
Defense number 4 is Baltimore.
Yeah, it's a good group. Drafted 2 guys in the first 2 rounds, too.
Their ADP is 98.
That's way too early.
I'm
not drafting any of those teams.
No,
top
that's
100.
crazy.
Right.
Defense number 5 at 197 is Minnesota.
Interesting, because, boy, Flores is good. I mean, he doesn't have great players, but he causes chaos, and he makes the quarterback double clutch a lot.
That's a really good division, though.
It is, and they don't have great players on defense. Yeah. I mean, Van Ginkel and guys like that, they're giving big money to, but they did add 2 defensive tackles. They were near the top, I think, on fantasy defenses last year. They definitely were near the top in like EPA and that kind of stuff.
Defense number 6 is Houston.
I'm a fan there too. 2 edge rushers that are big time. Good scheme, good tacklers, Stingley. They have money invested there. It's a good group. And that division is
pretty weak.
You like playing those quarterbacks.
Yeah. Number 7 is Green Bay. They're high on this every year, and they just never live up to the
I know.
ranking.
I fell for it a couple years.
They've used a whole bunch of first-round draft picks on defensive players.
Too. Right. And they have the tough division thing going, too. There's a lot of underachievers. I mean, even Gary's starting to come back to earth. Van Ness is very ordinary. That year that they used to pick on Wyatt and then the linebacker in the first round is not really bearing fruit. Is Jari Alexander really in? Someone else can have the Packers.
Defense number 8 is Kansas City.
It's always good. They play with a lot of leads. Chris Jones, Spagnuolo is a Hall of Famer. It's always good.
Defense number 9, Detroit.
Playing with leads helps.
That helps.
Dome's good for pass rushing. Loud. Hutchinson comes back.
I mean, they're going to play with a lot of leads, too, but they also play a lot of shootouts.
Yeah, they also drafted a nose tackle. You know, I mean, like, I wish that was more of a speedball off the edge investment. I think their secondary is good, not great. Is Arnold ready to turn a corner? Tough division, too, like you said. Okay.
Defense 10 is Buffalo.
We kind of just talked about them.
I
made a little higher on them.
Defense number 11, Seattle.
I like the coach who's in charge of the defense. I think guys like Murphy are really ready to jump up. Leonard Williams is a really good player. Yeah, they'd probably be in my top 10.
12 is the Chargers.
I was talking to AFC West today, and I don't know if they have really that good of players on defense, and I didn't think they did last year. But I think the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Well, they run the ball like crazy, which keeps the score down.
Absolutely helps.
Which is another thing to keep an eye on.
That's what the way you play offense is something to think about for sure. It's a good Ravens thing too. Like and the Eagles.
If we're just playing keep away all day long, and the other team's not going to do anything. Yeah,
defense isn't on the field as much. I don't know where the splash comes from though, other than Mac on that defense though.
Right outside the top 12. San Francisco at 13.
Bosa goes a long way in that conversation. I'm sitting here thinking Dallas, too. I mean, just a stud edge rusher is the nice starting point.
14 is Miami. Man, I'm not on board with that at all.
They'd be like in my bottom 5 or 6.
That defense is
soft.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they got some edge guys, but that's about it.
Yeah.
No, that's not for me.
15 is Tampa Bay.
Yeah, they're always good.
They're aggressive.
Yeah, they're always good. They blitz a lot.
16 is the Jets. I don't love that one.
Their pass rush should be decent, but it's a lot of change. That's a hard one to bank on.
17, the Patriots.
I thought they'd be really good last year, and they really looked like Belichick wasn't there last year. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably 17 is probably fine, but right.
18 is Dallas.
Not bad.
Here's why Dallas is too low. Not only do they have some pass rushers,
right?
They got the best return guy in the game.
I never think about that, and I should more often. That goes a long way.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. They have a great kicker, great return game. Not that the kicker helps that big.
Kicker doesn't help that, but the return game sure does.
Yeah, it does.
And they teach their defensive backs give up big plays.
Mm-hmm.
But they also make big plays.
They do make big plays. They are.
Now maybe that changes with the coaching change, but
yeah, Parsons goes a long way.
Yeah. The Rams are at 19.
I was thinking about them a little earlier, just because they're front.
Yeah. They get after it. The cornerbacks are soft, but
but they hide them pretty well, and their offense is pretty good and helps the defense a lot.
At 20 are the Colts.
I like the coaching change, but we'll see.
Yeah. At 21 are the Browns.
Myles Garrett in some corners. The offense isn't going to help.
The offense is terrible.
They could be on the field.
Now, you do get a couple of Cleveland games every year there.
Yeah, good point. I mean, they're a great streamer.
All of a sudden,
it's
12-9.
Yeah. There's always 2 of them. You want both defenses in that game.
At 22 are the Bengals. No.
Mm-mm.
No.
I mean,
Even with, you got Hendrickson.
Right.
Okay.
They drafted 2 linebackers and Shamar Stewart, none of which might help you.
And
now.
they're not interested in stopping anybody. They just want to win. They just want to play shootouts all day long.
Right.
That's what they want to do. If you get to the point where
they might be 32.
you get negative points if you give up 30 or more, because some leagues
like
do that.
Our leagues like that, yeah.
You might take negative points on the Bengals defense every week.
You would have with some regularity last year, right? They'd be way lower. I mean, they might be last.
Arizona, 23rd.
Ooh, I like that. I'd take them way higher.
Yeah.
They have 1 million defensive linemen. They are really, really creative on defense and had no players. I'm really impressed with that coaching staff. No one talks about Budda Baker as like a Minka. He's that good. He's a superstar, too. Drafted 2 guys in the top 2 rounds. Sign me up for them.
24 is the Falcons.
Maybe they got better rushing the passer. They have a corner. They got safeties, but they're weak up the middle. Their D tackles are bad.
The Raiders are at 25. The Raiders are kind of sneaky because they're going to run the crap out of the football.
I was thinking that too, and they got Crosby. Back 7 is bad.
Defensive-minded coach,
right?
That he's going.
Carroll knows how to hide stuff.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
that's not terrible.
The Bears.
Wilkins comes back.
Yeah, Bears are at 26.
Seems a little low, but I'm not going to stand on the table for them.
The Saints are at 27.
Yeah.
Jacksonville at 28.
They have edge rushers.
Yeah.
Playing a good division for defense.
The Titans are 29.
Yeah, they should be real bad.
Washington at 30.
I think Washington's starting to really resemble the Bengals in terms of just all gas, no brake. I mean, it's all offense. Their defense has more talent than the Bengals, but I don't know that Lattimore's good anymore. They traded their edge rushers and never really got anything back for them. They got a couple old dudes they're counting on. They really dedicate themselves to offense, which I get with a young quarterback, but I might be really in on Washington fantasy, not their defense.
Yeah. At 31 are the Giants, leaving the Panthers at 32. The Giants are
I'll
underrated.
Take the Giants a lot higher than that.
Yeah.
They got 5 D linemen.
They can run a waves of pass rushers at you.
Yeah, right. Dexter Lawrence is one of the best players in the league. Who was 32, by the way?
Carolina.
Yeah. I mean, they were historically bad last year. They look better than that, but I'll take the Giants as a sneaky. Not that anyone's drafting 2 defenses.
No,
but they might be 15 for me. They
they'd
wouldn't
be a nice
31.
streamer,
right? I would definitely have them on the watch list. Type of thing. They got pass rushers, man.
That's the other. The last 2 years, I've just given up on defenses. I just stream defenses every week.
Yeah.
There's always somebody out there. I just play matchups.
Yeah, there's some leagues that's hard to do. Like some of the dynasty leagues I'm in, the rosters are big, and some teams will have 2.
But if you're in a
12-team league with your buddies.
Rostered league,
You'll find
stream
something,
every week,
right? As long as it doesn't. Like in my league, it costs you actual dollars to make transactions, which is just a weird loophole in our league. So it gets kind of expensive playing that way, but most don't,
Right.
And again, that's why you draft them late.
All I do is pick the matchup. I don't even care if the defense is great. Just pick the matchup.
Right. And pay attention to weather, things like that too. Oh, it's going to be a sloppy game. Maybe I will play the Bengals defense, It's even if it's terrible defense, it's not that bad. Or Jameis Winston starting for the Giants, I might just play the defense he's playing. He throws picks, A lot of it's just more dependent on situation.
Absolutely. But let's get to a break. That's going to do it for the Fantasy Football Focus. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. Of course, you can hear The Drive every Monday through Friday right here on these very airwaves. You can also get the Steelers mobile app, and it'll download to your phone there, or you can watch along on YouTube. We didn't have a YouTube show yesterday.
Yep. Missed your TV.
We missed that. Tyler was not here.
Wasn't able to work his magic yesterday, but
was not.
We're right back at you.
It would have been a heck of a trick if he could have shot us yesterday from where he was at. But
by the way, he puts together a heck of a greatest hits over the weekend.
Will be on Saturday, yes.
Yeah. I urge everyone to check that out.
Check that one out in case you missed the show. You can also give us a thumbs up on that. We appreciate that. And you can leave your comments there. So, Matt, since the 33rd team is dead.
It seems like they're pretty well
Seems
shot,
like they have gone away.
Yep.
We talked about they had good stuff on there. I don't get it.
Oh, yeah. They had good writers, and I like that site.
I'm looking here at CBSSports.com, and they've put together their quarterback power rankings.
Ooh.
Coming
we haven't done that in a while.
out of the draft.
Okay. Well, I guess the Steelers have to have Rudolph as their representative.
He does.
Yeah.
He is.
You have to.
So as things stand right now, this according to CBSSports.com. We'll discuss as we go through.
Yeah.
Number 32 is Tyler Shuck.
Fair.
Has to be.
Yeah, fair.
Number 31 is Mason Rudolph.
I get it.
I don't know that that's necessarily super fair, though, because number 30 is...
I don't see who they place as the other quarterbacks. Like, the Browns don't really... It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
30 is Anthony Richardson. And I don't know if you saw this today. Warren Sharp put this out. He tweeted it out earlier today. On throws of 7 or more yards,
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson completes 38% of his passes. Wow. 38%, 7 yards.
Right.
7 yards.
10-yard out. I mean, a short out or, some easy throws, comebacks, things like that.
I think in that same tweet, I think he said the league average was like 58%, something along those lines.
I'm sure it's drastically under.
38%.
He's
not a quarterback. He's not.
He's not yet.
He won't ever be. I will go on record now. Anthony Richardson will never be a long-term quarterback for anybody. He stinks.
I lean that way, but boy, there's some things that have gone against him too.
I get it.
Like the process is so flawed to me because
things like the throwing of the football work against him.
No doubt, but you knew that when you drafted him.
I wouldn't have taken him third. I think it was a mistake.
That's what I'm saying. Is how do you go in the draft meetings with intention? Okay, that's our guy, and not realize this is going to be a process. I mean, he hardly played in college.
Right.
I think he's only attempted like 400 passes in the NFL level, and some of it's because he's been injured a lot, which is a huge problem. He hasn't been able to develop, and at this point, he might never. Yeah, he'd be lower. I mean, he'd have to be 31. He's hard to play against as a runner.
I get it.
And he does have a little bit of the way past 7 yards.
I think he's a better football player than he is a quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not alone in that.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if he were a wide receiver or something like, I would say, I get that.
Yeah, you're right.
But the actual completing of passes,
it's like Cordell Patterson at the beginning of his career. Like, he was a better football player than wide receiver or running back or
He's the number one job of a quarterback is to run the offense and run it effectively, and he doesn't do that. Every once in a while, he'll hit a big play, and it looks great. And you're like, hey, that's tantalizing. Or he'll break a long run. Yeah. That's really tantalizing.
Where we differ is
he can't do it consistently, though.
I have not buried him yet, though.
I think he's terrible.
Oh, I think he's bad so far.
38%.
Oh, that's terrible.
7 yards.
He's been bad. There's no doubt.
That's not much farther than we are apart right now. I can underhand the ball 7 yards.
I can throw my phone to you and you can get 38%. Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's definitely been bad, but this shouldn't be super unexpected. And
it's not unexpected for me. I didn't like him coming out.
Right. I mean, the accuracy stuff was a problem every step of the way. I just think he's got a chance to get better at it.
Get better. He can't be worse.
Right. He's not going to be worse.
I mean, 38%.
But that's horrible.
I mean, if he improved to 45%, that wouldn't even be passable.
Right.
He's terrible.
He's a terrible passer so far. There's no question. And he's always going to be a bad passer.
Yeah.
Right.
We're heading into year 3.
Right. But he's played so little.
I get because he taps out.
Once for one play.
You only have to do that once. Like the rest of the guys in the locker room say, what do you mean you're tapping out? You're the quarterback.
I think that's overblown, but I know that in the...
I don't think it's overblown in locker rooms.
I know. I mean, like...
You're the quarterback. You don't get to tap out.
I don't think Max would even mind. He's a Florida guy, and this came up at the combine. He's like, you can't tap out. I'm like, I know.
And that's a Florida guy saying that.
I know. He's a Florida guy saying that, but it's old school lineman. You can't do that. I get it. But that doesn't mean he can't play football.
I've never seen a quarterback do that ever before.
I don't think it's ever happened in the history of the planet.
Ever.
But that doesn't mean he can't play football.
I'm not saying he can't play football. I'm just saying he can't play quarterback.
Now, I don't want people to be like, whenever he totally busts out of the league in 3 years from now, like, told you so.
Oh, if it happens the other way, I'm going to get that thrown in my face.
Of course. And I wouldn't bet that it does go my way. I'm just not ready to throw him in the grave yet.
I don't even know if he can
I'm digging.
I don't even know if he can get the average.
That's a long way away.
It's a long way to get the average.
Long way away. I'm not sure he'll be the opening day starter. I mean, when he was listed there, I was like, I think Daniel Jones will probably start.
They gave Daniel Jones money.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is better than the 30th best quarterback.
29 is Joe Flacco. Not based on his play necessarily last year. He had, again, stretches.
He flashes.
Played well.
I mean,
but the overall results over an extended period of time, not good.
I'm not behind Flacco at this stage,
especially at this stage in his career.
I don't think he cares. I just think he's going to sling it, and good for him. And this is not to sound Brown Steeler bias, but if I had to play 17 games with the Steelers, I would rather play with Rudolph than Flacco.
Yes,
no question.
He's going to take better care of the football.
Oh yeah, you're right.
If Flacco started 17 games for somebody in the NFL, he might throw 25 interceptions.
The over-under should be like 23-ish. Yeah. Yep. And I think he's going to be the opening day starter.
28 is Russell Wilson.
He'd be number one of the guys we've listed so far.
Yeah, I don't know.
See who's ahead of him.
At 27 is Michael Penix.
Some of these guys are so hard to rank.
I can't have Michael Penix up there at this point. He didn't play in the preseason last year.
I know.
You've seen like 2 games of him. 3.
I mean, I can put Wilson ahead of Penix.
Yeah.
But he's not up there. Right. I don't know. Some of these guys are going to be really hard to rank.
26 is Bryce Young.
He'd be higher than Cam Ward for me right now.
I think so.
I mean, the guys that we don't know anything about, I have.
Well, 25 is Cam Ward.
Okay.
I don't know what that's going to look like.
No, and it's unfair to rank him. Period.
Would it be? Would it shock you if he had similar numbers to what Mason Rudolph had last year in Tennessee?
In some ways, yes, and I mean that as a positive to Rudolph because I'm digging here on my phone because I just did this for fun yesterday. Everyone knows I'm kind of an EPA nerd,
right?
And I was watching some Rudolph stuff, and I was just wondering what his season really looked like. And if you go to the EPA site, he doesn't have enough attempts. So I lowered down the number because he threw just over 200 balls.
Right.
So I said anyone with 200 or more attempts. And there was 42 quarterbacks. Richardson might have been last, by the way.
I'm sure he was.
So of the 42 quarterbacks.
If he wasn't, Levis was.
I think they were the bottom two. So, there's guys that played a fair amount.
Yeah.
200 pass attempts is enough to go off of. Rudolph was 23rd. Like, if that's what he gives you the rest of his career, that's great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I would rather have Ward than Rudolph.
Right.
But I bet Ward won't be 23rd this year, is my point.
Yeah.
I bet he's below that.
24 is Justin Fields.
That's about where he belongs. Fields versus Wilson's an obvious conversation that we have had 800 times and continue to.
Yeah.
Fields was actually ahead of Wilson in that EPA thing, but a lot of that's legs.
Yeah. 23.
But that counts.
It does. 23 is Kyler Murray.
I'd still have Bryce Young over all these guys. Not Kyler Murray.
Not Kyler Murray.
No.
Yeah.
That's pretty low on Kyler.
That is real low on Kyler. 22 is Sam Darnold.
I'd take Kyler over Darnold.
21 is Tua Tagovailoa.
This is getting to be an interesting neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because it seems really low to be in the 20s.
The next name's going to... 20 is J.J. McCarthy.
Oh, he has to be right next to Penix or below.
He has to be below that. We didn't get to see him in the preseason last year.
Right.
We have never seen him play an NFL game.
Yeah.
He might finish higher than that.
Oh, I hope he does.
I hope he does, but
how do you put him in Ward?
How do you rank him?
Right. They really shouldn't even be on the list if you haven't had an NFL snap.
19 is Drake May.
Is he better? I love him. I don't know if he's a better player than Kyler right now, but I'd much rather have him.
I'd rather probably have him than the next guy.
I mean, I'd rather have him than just about any quarterback in the league, not in the top 6 or 7, if I was building a team.
18 is Trevor Lawrence.
I'm still on board.
his play last year was not good.
Oh, his
play the last 2 years has not been good.
It's very erratic.
Now, I'm not saying that he stinks or anything.
Right.
This is closer to where he's at than where his draft status was.
Prospect is not probably ever going to happen. Right?
I mean,
this is a huge make or break year for him.
Yeah. 17 is Geno Smith.
He's really solid. I mean, I don't know how much longer he will be.
16, Caleb Williams. He should be lower.
He has to be lower.
He should be lower.
Has to be lower. Like, May had a much better year than him.
Yeah.
As rookies, in terms of what was around them and all that.
The grand scheme of things, Bryce Young probably had a better year than him.
Yeah. Young's way too low.
Yeah.
I don't think Young's great, but he should be 21.
His play in the second half of the season was better than that of Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams is closer to like a Penix right now, just in terms of where I'd rank him.
Yeah.
It's a lot of unknown, but it's more negative than positive.
15 is Bo Nix. Kyler Murray's getting ridiculously disrespected here.
Like, Geno Smith's better at football right now than Bo Nix.
Yeah.
You know.
Putting the cart before the horse.
We're not talking about what they're going to become.
No. 14 is Dak Prescott.
Unfortunately, I think that's what he slipped down to the last couple of years have been, hard to stay on the field and doesn't run anymore.
13 is C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, I'll bet that he's much higher
Probably
when it's all said and done, yeah.
12 is Justin Herbert. Boy, there's going to be some names up here I'm going to disagree with.
Right. I don't think there's 11 quarterbacks better than Justin Herbert.
11 is Baker Mayfield.
I think you have to give him credit after a while. I mean, the Tampa stint has been really impressive.
10,
I'd rather have Herbert, but...
Yeah. 10 is Brock Purdy.
He'd be more like 14.
9, Jared Goff.
If you protect him, I mean, you got to do it. You couldn't ask him just to be behind a terrible line running around making plays, but he's in a good situation.
The next one I'm going to disagree with. He should be lower. Jordan Love at 8.
He's not 8.
No.
I mean, he's not better than Justin Herbert.
He's not better than Baker Mayfield right now.
No, he's not. He's 12.
7 is Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, he's the best one we've mentioned, in my opinion.
6, Patrick Mahomes.
No. I mean, that's sad.
5 is Josh Allen.
There's 4 quarterbacks on the planet better than those two?
What are we doing here? 4 is Lamar Jackson.
They're the best 3 on the planet.
Oh, come on.
Well, I mean, Burrow's
come
with
on.
them, but come on. What are we doing here?
3 is Joe Burrow.
They're the best 4. They're in their own tier, folks. So that means Hurts is in the top 2. And
2 is Jalen Hurts. 1 is Jaden Daniels.
That's sad.
Who wrote this crap?
That is really bad.
Cody Benjamin.
I don't know you, Cody, but
Cody.
we got a problem, dude.
Hey, Commander Cody, man, come on.
I mean,
I don't like to rip on other people's work.
No, right.
Jaden Daniels, the number 1 quarterback in the league right now.
The top 4 to me are very, very easy. We can fight about the order.
This is coming out of the draft. Like, no.
And I don't think Burrow's there yet, but truly to me, Lamar, Allen, and especially Mahomes are all-time greats in their prime.
Yes. Yes. I am a huge Jaden Daniels fan.
Oh, yeah.
But 1 overall?
I mean,
man.
I'll make an argument. I can gladly be Jaden Daniels' lawyer that he's the next of the 4. And there's 4 that are way up here, guys, way up here, that could be all-time greats.
Yeah.
And we're watching them, and they're all in the AFC.
We've seen
and 2
1
of them
year
of
Jaden Daniels.
Right.
1.
We can talk about who's number 5, but you can't talk about who's 1 through 4. Come on. They're their own tier. And it's not even close.
No.
Hurts is not.
Jalen Hurts, too. Come on.
So I heard this on a podcast, and we don't have time to do it, but I would love to do it with you one of these days, that they went through and said, if I took Mahomes and added him to 31 other teams in the league and took their quarterback away, how many of those teams would be Super Bowl contenders? Like, the Steelers are definitely one of them.
Yeah.
If you put Mahomes on the Steelers, they are a Super Bowl contender. And then the other argument was, how many quarterbacks could you put on the Eagles instead of Hurts, and they would still be Super Bowl contenders? Which list is bigger? And it kind of is a fun exercise, because would you rather have the team or the stud?
I'd rather have the stud. I think I could win a Super.
I think so, too.
I think I could win with Mahomes with about 24 other teams.
I say they're both pretty long lists. like Baker Mayfield on the Eagles would go pretty far.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both really long lists, and it's a fun conversation.
But that list isn't as long as
the Mahomes list is great.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to take the Saints to the Super Bowl, but if you pick every
he's not
team,
going to take the Browns to the Super
no,
Bowl.
right. There's some
Nobody can do that.
but he might take them to the playoffs.
Maybe.
I mean, the bad team.
They'd be a contender.
The Colts would be a Super Bowl contender with him.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you really think about it, both lists are pretty long.
Where would Aaron Rodgers come in at on this list?
I'm thinking like Tua land, but with much variance.
Tua was 21. It was Tua, McCarthy, Drake May,
McCarthy,
Trevor Lawrence.
Terrible. I think like in Lawrence land for now. Now that could go to 30 if he doesn't want to get hit anymore and everything falls apart, or it could go to 9 if he's on fire. I mean, like he'd be one of the most volatile ones on there of what is to come. But where he is now, I would put him slightly below average.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and you saw where Fields and Wilson ranked on here.
Mm-hmm. I'd have him ahead of those two.
Yeah.
In terms of give me the best chances to win today, and where are you today? Yeah.
Okay. That was the.
No, that doesn't mean I would rather have Tua for the Steelers.
Right.
There's a lot of or Purdy or those guys. But I think people know what I'm saying.
That's the very interesting list on CBS Sports.
The top two lost
Come
me in a
on,
big
man.
way, man. Right.
Yeah, we were
Great years.
Kind of with you there until you get to that top 10.
Yeah, I didn't think the rest of the list was bad, but the top 6 were whoa.
Yeah, you know.
The top 4 have to be the top 4.
Come on, young man.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to get to another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. We'll be back to finish up the show. We'll hear from Steelers General Manager Omar Khan.
Nice.
Right after this. Welcome back to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, Steelers General Manager Omar Khan, who typically doesn't talk after the draft.
That happened, right?
From the draft until he has a press conference at the start of training camp, and that's it. Decided, hey.
Is it only because of the trade?
I think the trade had a big part of it. Well, maybe signing a quarterback might change that, but typically the way things work is that once this portion of the season starts, Mike Tomlin is the spokesman
he's the guy
for the Steelers.
At the podium.
He's the guy that does all the talking. In this case, I think Omar Khan felt, hey, I'm going to come out and talk about this trade because I kind of
there's no rule he has to or anything.
No, he didn't have to.
Right. Okay.
But some interesting things said here.
No, I can't wait to see what he has to say.
I thought we'd just play the whole thing back and let our listeners hear what he had to say.
Thanks, guys. I don't normally speak around this time, but I figured I'd answer some questions. The trade sort of happened quickly. We had some people inquire during the draft. Nothing that really made sense, and Cowboys reached out. I don't really remember what day it was, but earlier this week, and they gave us they proposed something that for us to think about, and we had conversations internally. I also had some conversations with George's agent, Dave, who I have a good relationship with, and we discussed where things, I guess, have been with George, where they are, and where things could go with George, and this trade makes sense for everyone. But here we are, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Did he want to leave?
He never asked. If you're asking, I was never asked to. I was never told that he wanted to leave. No.
Omar, you guys have been pretty supportive of him throughout his 3 years here. How did you get to the point where him going somewhere else turned out to be the best course of action?
We just kind of talked about it. Lots of serious conversation, honest conversations, and we just felt that a fresh start for both sides was the right thing.
Were those conversations about a potential extension? Were you negotiating with him for an extension?
We don't talk about negotiations. We just felt it was a time for a fresh start.
Omar, is it obvious to say that draft picks are harder to come by, more valuable before the draft than after?
It's a good question. Like for me, those draft picks are valuable no matter what. But yeah, when you get to the, I think this is what you're asking, Jim. But I think when you're the day of the draft or you're going through the draft, like those, every one of those picks feels like they're the greatest pick, you know, that you don't want to get rid of them or they're valuable. But I mean, they're all important.
How do you view it as a disappointment that it didn't work out, or do you just move on and say, we got that third round pick, let's just move on? How does the organization feel?
You know, I wouldn't use the word disappointment. You know, we had 3 years with George, and you know, we had some exciting times, but you know, it was just time for the fresh start for both sides was the right thing.
How does this impact this team this year? And how do you feel about the depth of receiver?
We wouldn't have done this if we didn't feel good about this receiver situation, about our depth here. You know, I know people make the comparison about last year. It's not even close to being the same. Like
What's the difference?
well, you know, obviously we made the investment with DK. We've had another year with some of the young guys and gotten to know them, watch them develop. We had a Robert Woods. Like I said, we've had Roman's healthy. I've seen him the last couple weeks out here and how he's doing. And we saw how he was progressing at the end of last year. Obviously, he didn't get the chance to to get on the field, but there was some excitement there. But we have a good group. You know, there's some guys that are back, and we've seen their growth and have another year under our belt with them and feel good about it.
Is there a potential pool that's more easily accessible for veterans in free agency as opposed to where you were a year ago too? Because it felt like last year when all those names were being bandied about, there were potential trades. Whereas, do you have a wider pool that maybe you can pick from in free agency this year that could backfill?
You mean right now as we sit here today? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
You know, I'll say this. Like, you know, if there's an opportunity to add a playmaker in an offense, you know, regardless of whether it's a receiver or wherever it is, you know, we're going to look into it. And, you know, if it makes sense, it makes sense. But, you know, there's always good players available. And, I mean, that's an interesting question. There's good players out there. You know, if we wanted to add some people, we could. But, you know, we feel comfortable with them.
Has there been an outright, in terms of acquiring draft capital for next year, was that an objective that you aggressively have been trying to do, or in terms of compensatory picks and things like that?
Yeah, I'll say, you know, this year we were in a position where enjoying, how should I say this? It was important for us to acknowledge the fact that we could be in a position to acquire comp picks next year. And, you know, I mean, you guys saw how we did things in the offseason. That's obviously something that was on the back of our minds when we made decisions. And we'll see how it all shakes out. You know, the next phase of this is how much these guys play to determine where those comp picks end up. But that's something we were, you know, obviously cognizant of.
So did that play a role in why you didn't trade on draft weekend to get picked for this year?
What do you mean? Say it again.
The next year's draft pick and what you had just said,
Yeah.
that it played a role. You didn't make the trade on draft weekend because of that?
No, it's not. It wasn't, you know, a trade that was interesting to us was not there draft weekend. You know, teams called and they, you know, a lot of times you're just talking hypotheticals and people say, hey, would you do X, Y, or Z? And, you know, most of the time the answer is no. And there was just nothing there that was worth, you know, discussing.
At owners' meetings, maybe elsewhere, you guys sounded pretty excited about DK and George and schematic challenges that could prevent the defenses. What changed between now and Wednesday?
Yeah, you know, it's just, you know, I guess we had a team that called and, you know, gave us something worth thinking about. And, you know, we had the conversations. And like I said, we talked about, you know, where we've been and where we are, where we could be. It just made sense that a fresh start was a good idea.
And I know the business
Guys,
aspect,
two more.
I know the business aspect always comes in with guys in the last year of their deal, whether they're younger or older. I mean, do you guys think there was a chance he was going to do the hold-in type thing at training camp and all of that stuff?
You know, it's a hypothetical. I don't know where that would have gone.
Last one here, last one.
Does the track record that you guys have had of recent trading away of receivers that you guys have drafted, does that impact any vision for how you guys want to assemble your talent or the type of players you want to bring into your organization and moving forward?
No, I mean, some of that's just really coincidence how it's played out with the position. I mean, we're always trying to get good players regardless of what position it's at and at any point in the year. So, you know, I think there's some coincidence to that. But you know, we want to get good players, good people, and, you know, we're chasing a championship. And every decision we make is based on trying to win a championship, not only in the future, but this year. I mean, we're focused on trying to win a championship this year, and I know there's a lot of questions about different things, but there's a lot of time between now and the start of the season, and but rest assured, we're trying to win a championship this year.
That was Steelers general manager Omar Khan with the assembled media earlier today over at the Steelers rookie minicamp, which will continue through the weekend.
2 more days, right? There's
2 more days.
Saturday, Sunday?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So let me see if there's any more news that comes out of that whole event. But some interesting stuff there from Omar. We had already talked about a lot of that stuff. But
Yeah. I mean, it's our last segment of the week, but we got schedule release stuff coming up. We got more OTAs on the
one thing I did
horizon.
want to mention.
Yeah.
The NFL are going to make some announcements on some of the early games.
Yeah.
I think maybe like the Black Friday game, maybe the international games. That's going to start Monday and Tuesday. So maybe
we'll start filtering in some.
Maybe we'll get an idea of when that game in Ireland will be played.
Cool. Really looking forward to it. I'm sure a lot of people are on the edge of their seat. Yeah, okay, that'd be great.
So,
and then we're doing a live schedule release show as we always do.
We are.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Lots of stuff coming here next week. A busy week, but that's going to do it for us today. For my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site, running the Justin Miller hotline. You can hear him on KISS FM. And for Tyler Vittmeyer, joining us back in studio today, making sure our video gets out there on the YouTube. I am Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.